One early Christmas morning, in front of my entire family, my baby brother propped himself up on his own 2 feet, rose from his pile of new baby boy toys, and waddled clear across the room, eyes locked at the pink Barbie doll my sister was unwrapping. We started laughing. My uncles made jokes, but when he snatched that Barbie from my sister and refused to let go, my father came swooping in with my new football, hoping it would distract him long enough for my uncles to pry that Barbie from his hands, but my baby brother just took that football, threw it with every intent to shatter the gender mold he had yet to understand, and we all watched as it rocketed just a few inches shy of hitting my grandmother square in her face. To this day, I have never seen an old Asian woman duck that fast. My parents said it was just a phase that would pass, my brother liking dolls, or perhaps he just liked anything that's pink, and there's nothing wrong with liking pink. It's just a color, it means nothing. Even the sky prefers pink before it turns blue, and one day, my brother will too. After all, we were all children once. We were all a box of crayons wanting free rein to let loose, and that was okay. At least until the day our parents felt it was time to grow up, when they could no longer see our imagination for the scribbles they were, when they felt they needed to teach us that this world is a coloring book, and we need to stay inside the lines of whatever perfect picture someone else deemed appropriate to draw out. So when it came to raising my brother, my parents became devout, scolded him for skipping around the house, force-fed Tonka trucks like vegetables, snatched the pink crayons from his fingers and replaced it with blue. For the record, my parents were never cruel. They just wanted us to color a certain way, but by his 5th birthday, he still refused to put the dolls away. In fact, he was drawing them, Barbies wearing all the dresses he imagined out loud, colored each one with the same pink crayon after he threw all the other colors out. By his 8th, my parents finally admitted it was clearly not a phase. The day my mother stopped him just a few seconds before he tried applying her makeup to his face. By his 15th, he was hiding women's dresses in the closet behind his clothes, but on the day he turned 18 years old, my baby brother reached his hand to the back of that closet, pulled out one of those dresses and said he was no longer gonna hide, wiped the first streak of makeup across his eyes, looked into the mirror and told himself, "I am free." And my mother worries that one day my baby brother, sister, will be taunted by an angry village who will hold pitchforks the shape of picket signs, who will want to hurl Bibles hoping it may knock some sense into her, douse her with holy water to try to wash the makeup clear off her face for good. And my mother worries that a war has been brewing full of the self-righteous, hell-bent on making sure people like my sister will lose, or worse, that a drunken man will whistle at her beauty, then beat her lifeless when he finds out her truth. I asked her if she ever gets afraid. She said she's more afraid of who she would become if she denied what she felt in her heart. She said if she had a choice, she would have tapped God on the shoulder the moment he started to piece her together and say, "Hey, I think you're using the wrong parts." But she can't, because God creates what he creates. If God created a boy with a longing to be a girl at an age when I was still too young to comprehend the choice I was about to make, then I have to believe God makes no mistakes. And if God is a loving God, you all say he is, then I have to believe he would never create someone he only intended to hate. The poet in me wants to tell her she's right. My left wing says hand her an axe, and we'll both ride courageously into the night, chopping down every single picket sign we see in sight. But this is not a transgender pride poem. I'm not trying to wage a revolution. I don't even know what fight this is, because when it comes to all of this, there's a lot I still don't know. It's a world I know nothing about, and to be honest, dear sister, I'm almost afraid to find out. What if I'm not as open-minded as I'd like to claim? What if I can't help but cringe when I call you by your new name? What if we can't distinguish the woman you've become from the young boy we still think you are? But you and your caring heart would never force us into such things, would never bring the war inside our front door. And it's because of that I need to be the one to step out dressed in your courage, to meet you where you might need me the most. Because even if there's so much I still don't know, all I need to know is my only job is to love you. And if the only fight you'll ever ask of me is to fight within myself, to not confuse him with her or he with she, then believe me, I'll fight to correct myself every single time. But just know that if the turbulent time comes when that's no longer enough, when the fight wants to force you to run and hide, then believe me, Carla, I'll be by your side, scribbling love with a pink crayon all over their picket signs. What's going on? Have to make some noise! What's up, guys? So, I don't have much time here. I'm just going to get right to my next poem. The reason why I did that poem to open up, yesterday was National Women's Month, so this set, I wanted to honor the two very important women in my life. So that poem was for my sister Carla. This poem is for my sister Kate, and I hope that you like it. I'm just going to let the poem speak for itself, and yeah.
Oh, I have promise of me no tears.
When the snow falls in the winter, the woolly caterpillar crawls into a crevice and freezes to death. Its blood stops flowing, its lungs hardens into ice, its heart comes slowly to a halt. The heart is always the last to go. But when the snow melts in the spring, the ice thaws from its ventricles, the crystals dissolve from its lungs, and just as slowly as it died, the woolly caterpillar awakens and comes back to life. For 120 hours, we waited for my sister to wake up. My family mumbling prayers around the doctor who tells us she fell into a coma when a blood vessel hemorrhaged, and my father hasn't stopped praying since. My stepfather searching the eyes of doctors for the answers to those prayers. My siblings pushing me into the room as though I could perform a miracle. My mother making twin towers of my arms the way she crashed into them now, while I attempted to believe that my faith far exceeds science and God would awaken her somehow. Awaken, sweet sister. Tell me that my tears the size of mustard seeds will fall upon your cheek and move the mountain of swelling in your brain. Tell me that the same God who makes all things possible can still live up to his name, because right now that name belongs to your mother, who's cursing God for being too coward to make up his own mind as she stares at the medical forms granting the hospital permission to let you die. If he wants her, then take her, she says. Who am I to decide? And by her side is your fiancé, whose fists are stones he's ready to throw if the doctor mentions organ donation just one more time. But your father, he says, still praying at your bedside, wrapping rosaries around your hands and tucking prayer cards behind your neck. God will resurrect my daughter, he says. Please, God, tell me she'll resurrect. How do I respond? How do I agree when the tubes of your IV intertwines around my throat, strangles my voice every time I plead? Awaken, sweet sister. Make this poem easier to write. Tonight, pull out the respirator in your throat and speak the words that will end this poem brighter than how it begun. Remove the tubes and we'll blow kisses into your veins, that you may know where the true source of your life comes from, how it comes from your heart, how in this hurricane world you broke into tiny pieces, dropped them like care packages on our laps. You always had enough of it to give, which is why there are 200 people in the waiting room now, ready to give it back in case you needed to live. But on the 7th day, the doctor gave us the results of the last test my sister will ever take, and I swear I'm not built for earthquakes like that. My knees buckling like the bridge, my arms shaking too much to catch another one of my mother's crash landings. None of us was left standing. We were all falling through the cracks, falling until we hit the floor for room that night. This is what rock bottom must look like. The nurse disconnecting her machines, our hands stretching to touch a part of her as we wailed, our tears dropping as fast as her heartbeat, our sanity vanishing with her breath. Faster it faded, my stepfather stroking her face. Faster it faded, my father presses her hand to his cheek. Faster it faded, we're still waiting on a miracle. Faster it faded, my face planted to my mother's belly. Mommy, this hurts. Faster it faded, and then it was finished. The monitors dropped to 0, and as her breath emptied and her heartbeat slowed, her fiancé removes the ring from her finger, ties it to his necklace, and says how fitting. It was her heart that was the last to go. It was silent after that, silent as my mother reaches over to close her daughter's eyes. My stepfather releases a long-awaited sigh. My sibling straightens the creases in her blanket while my father unravels the rosary from her hands, takes the prayer cards from behind her neck and slips them into his pocket, places a kiss on her forehead, her chest, and both her shoulders. Put in a good word to God for us, he says. And that's when I knew that all along we had failed to see the light at the end of this tunnel she was going through. Because while we were praying for her awakening, the awakening was really meant for us, to remind us that life is a coma we can still choose to wake up from. That faith means not having to wait for the sun to come, because sometimes the sun doesn't come, but we can still rise on our own. Her last breath has already blown life into the candles of our bones, with nothing more but a wish that we may live more fully. The woolly caterpillar freezes to death in the winter and comes back to life in the spring. For 14 years, it goes through the same cycle of awakening, waiting until the final year when its work is complete, then spins itself into a cocoon to be reborn a moth and fly away for good. So sleep now, sweet sister. You surrendered your life for too many winters. We'll take it from here. Sleep now wherever you wake. May you be reborn with wings on your back, flying into the sun, knowing when our own winter ends, spring will come and we'll see each other again. But until then, yeah, put in a good word to God for us. I could thank you guys for having me, man. God bless you.